With me right now is terrorism analyst Eric Stakelback from D.C. and former Navy SEAL with me here in New York, Jonathan Gilliam. All right, Eric, tell us about the significance of this with al-Shabaab. And although they apparently can't confirm the identity, what we do know is that this individual was at least a high-value target in al-Shabaab.
Yeah, Judge, look, it shows that al-Shabaab is becoming a major player in the global jihad, and U.S. officials have taken notice of this group. That mall attack last week, Judge, was a real game changer, I believe, and the main reason I think it's gotten U.S. officials' attention and that they want to send a message to al-Shabaab is because there is a real fear that such an attack could happen here. Judge, everyone watching needs to remember that over the past few years, dozens of Somali Americans have traveled to Somalia to train with al-Shabaab. Now, Judge, these are U.S. citizens with U.S. passports. They can return to America when they get here. All bets are off. Many Somalis live in Minneapolis, where we have the Mall of America, the largest mall in the United States. So right now we're trying to send a message to al-Shabaab, but this is a resilient movement, Judge. It's going to take a persistent effort to kind of keep them down.
Well, certainly good news, but, you know, at the same time, Eric, when you think about it, I mean, the murder of anyone who is not a Muslim and the brutal way in which they were murdered is certainly something that I'm sure caused us to act as quickly as we could. Here in New York, Jonathan Gilliam, former Navy SEAL. What do you know about this, Jonathan?
Well, what I'm hearing from my contacts is that there were strategic hits. These were planned hits. It's not something that necessarily was thought up overnight. Typically, these are the type of raids that they do day in and day out, but it seems very extreme because of the high-value targets. But these SEALs and special operators that are going in there, they're so good at doing these things, and they've trained so hard. Their standard operating procedures are so good that whenever it comes time to do these things, it's pretty fluid. And we're looking at unconventional warfare. Unconventional warfare is tactical assaults to affect the strategic outcome. And you will see a diminished effect of their attacks in Somalia.
All right, so this is in Somalia, the takedown of this al-Shabaab guy, and they could not take his body out, apparently. Okay. What does that tell you?
Well, typically when we start to run into things like that, it has to do with either a crime scene of what's going on, or we don't really have as good of a relationship with some countries as we would with, like Kenya, for instance. We have an incredible relationship with them.
But not Somalia.
Probably not so much.
All right, Eric, I'm going to go back to you. Now, this guy from 1998, you just saw him on the screen, this Anas al-Libi, who had a $5 million bounty on his head. Now, 1998, that was a long time ago, those embassy bombings were. And what does this tell the rest of the world about America at this point?
Well, I think in one sense, Judge, it's good that we finally got justice. We finally got this guy. But on the other hand, it's a question of what took you so long? He'd been living in Tripoli, Libya since 2011, Judge, in a pretty nice neighborhood, apparently. I think this brings up another point as well. We have the greatest special forces in the world. We saw it today in Somalia. We saw it with this raid in Tripoli. Judge, why can't we get the men who were behind Benghazi? Why can't we send some SEALs into Libya to get those guys? I think that's an open question right now.
We're all concerned about that. But, you know, kudos to those elite special operations forces, what they do every day for all of us. And I understand that we now have former United States Attorney General Judge Michael Mukasey on the phone.
Yes.
All right. Good evening, Judge. It's our understanding that there is an intention by the Department of Justice to bring back this high-value target, this Anas al-Libi, to the United States and to try him in federal court in New York. Your thoughts?
Well, it's another indication that we really ought to have an interrogation program. Obviously, the man's already under indictment. At some point, he ought to be tried. But before he's tried, we ought to find out what it is that he knows. And the administration has scrapped the CIA interrogation program, as a result of which, although he may be interrogated, I don't know what the program is. I don't know how long it is we're going to do it before we get him over here.
Well, you know, it's interesting, Judge. We just heard that there was an elite FBI unit that was going out there to interrogate him. How is this different from that CIA interrogation unit that you reference?
Well, I think the limits on what the FBI can do are very different, and the techniques are very different from what the CIA could do.
All right, and I'm here on set, Judge, with someone who's nodding his head to what you're saying. Jonathan, Judge, stay with us. Jonathan, why were you nodding?
What you've seen in country or in these areas is a political choking off of the typical tactics that would be used in past, to where it becomes very, very difficult to actually go out and interrogate individuals. There's so many rules of engagement that do not work effectively, and it all comes back to politics, which is funny because it comes back, these individuals are out there, working while people that are failing them in Washington are the same people that are failing them by setting up policies that stranglehold them when they're in country.
All right, and Judge,
the FBI agents,
go ahead,
if the FBI agents start the conversation by warning him of his Miranda rights, then obviously that's not
right.
That's not designed. That's not going to elicit a whole lot of information.
Well, and that I have to tell you, Judge, you've been on this show before, and we've talked about this. I mean, giving him okay, this guy has been, on the lam, although Eric Stakelback is telling us he's been in one place for years.
He was apparently living openly, as were others.
Okay, and now we want to give him his right to remain silent. Doesn't this interfere with our ability to, show the rest of the world that we're serious about this? That some people would treat this as a military case and not a civilian criminal trial?
Right. I think that once we get him, the important thing to find out is whatever it is that he knows. The trial can wait. The important thing is to get whatever intelligence he's got on possibly ongoing operations.
Well, certainly we hope that happens. Judge Mukasey, thanks so much for being with us. Eric Stakelback and Jonathan Gilliam, we're going to stay on this, and we very much appreciate you all coming in tonight. And